Good morning, everyone on YouTube and X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. I'm 3 minutes early, but I figured let's get here before the action starts. If you're on X or on YouTube or Twitter, say hi, whatever. I'm gonna stop screen share for a second and get the shameless plug stuff in now because kind of I'm not great on that. Get the discount links in for everybody. Give me 1 second. And while we're waiting, the profile today looks kind of bullish. That doesn't mean it's going to play out that way, but that's kind of the way it looks. Okay, so here's the options depth discount link while we wait. Here's the Mentor Q discount link. Of course, I should probably have my own Substack link, right? You would think. Here it is. And there's a Substack link. And over the weekend, I'm going to be launching something or other premium service. I'm not sure. I had planned it one way, but then there's limitations to what I can do on Substack. So I'm going to have to kind of refigure all that. So stay tuned for that. Okay. That said, let's get on to the action. We got 1 minute to Wapner. That's a joke from Rain Man. Now, let's see what we can see here. So we're at the stall point, and we'll go over the OD, the options depth heat map, and we'll look at Mentor Q's roadmap, and we'll look at Gamma Edge or whatever else I have, and we'll figure out what we can figure out. And let's see, 1 more minute still. And let's remember that we get that initial reaction now where the vol surface reprices. As you see, it's bullish. JP Morgan was leaning more toward the bearish side. What a shock. Um, Most hated rally continues. And so this is the initial adjustment as volatility reprices. So let's go see if we can see it in the VIX one day, which sucks. That's not going to show it because, okay, so here's the vol surface repricing. Boom, down goes Fraser bar. Below the key 17 pivot. Now, if we have time, I'll show you why 17. Now we stalled out right where we're supposed to near 50. So now this is the initial rehedging of the surface after the vol gets sucked out of the chain and the whole gamma landscape shifts. It might take a couple minutes for that to show up on the options depth heat map. So just a quick oh yeah, I wanted to just say a word about yesterday's action. Yesterday's action, a lot of people were bearish. We had kind of topped out all-time high. At least we're expecting a pullback. but the structure was mechanically supportive just like it is now. And sometimes that's what carries the day, which is why I've learned to lean more and more on the structural aspects to tell me what's going to happen where, rather than just at the the horizontal or the levels or the flags or the cups and handles and all that kind of thing. Anyway, okay. So here we are stalling at 6250-ish. No surprise. The top of the weekly straddle from last week, by the way, was 62, 64, 65, whatever it is up here. And so the straddle, for those of you that don't follow that, is the expected move based on the options chain, and that's kind of what I don't want to say controls, but I will anyway. What controls or dictates a lot more of the action than your average bear, your average person realizes. Okay, let's see what. Now I don't know if this is repriced yet. I don't know, like how quickly the slices reprice, but this position number, and that's not gonna change. Although there is some positions that being added, in the pre-market. Let's just look at where we are. So right now we're at 6250-ish. So we're stalling at this market maker large gamma bar. Okay, and so we go up, market makers kind of have to sell to hedge that out, but we have this little inflection-y kind of thing in here. And so, we can hit here overshoot, come back into this area. Then we have this high liquidity cluster above us. So if you kind of think of that as a lump, as we head up, market makers have to sell to balance out their deltas. But then as we move away from this lump, then they have to buy. So it kind of, all this sucks us back into this zone. I want to show you something. I didn't put it here only because it kind of distorts the view. But if we go to 6310, I want to show you what's doing up there. Holy moly. 6,300, 13,000 short calls. So, I mean, whenever they sold them, I don't know, but that doesn't mean we're going to get there. But that puts this into context, and that puts into context also if we get close enough to this, then as we go up, they have to sell here, but then as we go down, they might have to buy here. And so let's switch to gamma so we see the relative influence of that rather than just the numbers. And right now, the relative influence is not that great, but it still matters. Look at that. Even though it's so far away, we're kind of forming another zone up in here. I'm not saying we're going to get there. Base case, we stall out near here. We got all this supportive gamma down here. We got a few tuck zones, so to speak. Fail here, go here, fail here, go here. 20, that was the pivot. A few of us saw that on the Gamma World. Below 6,200 or 6,220, wherever kind of that pivot is, we have supportive gamma all below us, but kind of decreasing amount. And here's your like first downside magnet, which looks like it ain't going to happen, but it's NFP day, so you never know. And let me just get this off because it just distorts the view of what I want to see in the more granular stuff closer to the action. So I'm just going to go to 62.95. But mental asterisk that there's those flows from up above. Now let's see what the heat map looks like. And you see it's kind of basically muted. The shading is light, and we're going to kind of look at that more closely in a minute. And here it's got this, the little X's show where changes are. There really haven't been any changes yet. Let's take a quick look at the option chain. I did a few 1 DTEs yesterday, more just to demonstrate to subscribers different setups and different ways to play it with some broken wing flies and some whatevers. But what I want to do is let's take a look at the deltas. Whoops. Curious to see what the delta on those 6300s are. I don't know if this doesn't look like it reset. That doesn't look right to me, but maybe it did. I just don't buy that that's a one delta. Let's change this to open interest. Oh, and a quick comment on why open interest is wrong, quote unquote. And we saw it, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, where it had like 20,000 open interest at 6,200. However, the IC whale sold 6,200 calls around 10,000. Somebody bought 6,200 calls around 10,000. Market maker exposure was basically zero. Open interest said 20,000, and we blew right through it. How do I know what the real market maker exposure is? CBOE knows. Options depth uses CBOE data. Do the math. That's how we know. Well, that's how I know. And so I tend to shy away from selling iron condors on NFP days. I might be tempted to let things settle out. And if I were to, 6290 or 95, somewhere below the 6200, looks like a good bet. Up top, although the move to 62, the move beyond 6260 seems unlikely. I would just kind of want to wait and see a little bit. And just like yesterday, we kind of had that slow mechanical drift up because of all the overhead gamma. We might have a slow mechanical drift up. Were we below 6250, which we are, a mechanical drift up toward here seems pretty much baked in. Um, Over there, it gets a little tricky. Let me just take a look at something else in here real quick. So, curious about a fly. And I was, you're just gonna have to, we're gonna have to ignore the fact that it's kind of overwriting a fly that I have now. But let's just say a fly, I don't know, 35, 50, 50. We'll keep it even for now. 15, 15, 15, 390. That's a tad expensive. If we want to tighten it in, play for the 50 pin, a buck 85. That might be worth putting in. I'll play with it a little bit more later for my subscribers. Of course, you could do a wide fly for $3, $4, and you might be able to have a double or triple. I'm going to put one in for science, 185 bucks. I can always manage it during the day, and that's it. So let's play pinball. I have an emoji for. I have a little something or other for that. I gotta find it. So let's go here. Now we're gonna do pinball 1.0. Hold on, let me find it. Let's play pinball, folks. This was yesterday's pinball. I'm working on that. Give a baby boomer a toy like this, and we're in trouble. Okay, so let's get back. Now that I finished amusing you, let's get back to this. Let's use a different. Well, actually, let's go to this dashboard first. Now let's look at charm. Okay, so we've got one customer here at 62.25. Let's just kind of zoom the map in a little bit. Let's get to 6,300 for fun. Now let's give the bears their due all the way down there. So 62.25, kind of a tuck in right here, kind of a flattish day at the end of the day. 62.30 is kind of where here's where we are now. So here's sort of the strongest, the widest zone, 40 to 50. And we should stall at 50 based on this, or 60 if we go up. Here's that little tuck in that we got somebody at right over here. And then we have a pretty big zone right below here. So we'll say the likely pins might be 10-ish, 22, 20-ish. Right here at 32, if you could thread the needle, kind of selling the 30 or 35, whatever, thread the needle in here, and then kind of the more likely one in here. But we don't know how we're going to trade in the morning, once this all settles out. And so that's sort of the if then 62.50. And just a quick note when we're playing, well, not necessarily when we're playing football. When you think of these levels, we tend not to close on a market maker long strike like this. So just like yesterday, 62.30 was the big level, and we closed at 62.27, 62.50-ish. So 62.47.50 would kind of be the way it would express itself. Now, can we close on it? Yeah, we do once in a while, but probabilistically speaking, we would close below it. And of course, everybody would say market maker conspiracy, but it's just the mechanical reflexive hedging response. There's no conspiracy. Oh, and let me tell you about these numbers real quick. I was explaining it to my brother. So you see where it says value minus 270? So first flip the sign. So market makers would have to buy 270 futures times two because ES is half of the SPX. 500 futures. Were we over here at like 5 minutes to? Over here, they have to buy 12. They don't have to do anything. Over here, they'd have to sell. So at the end of the day, at if we were at 6250, they'd have to sell 128 times two, 250, whatever it is, 260 futures to hedge that out. So they're going to have to sell. And so that's kind of what happens there. So we have two pinball players. Looks like I have a couple here on private chat. 6240. And now 6240 is definitely a reasonable bet. And since I already have this, give back the and go slowly to 6280. So give it back and then go back up again. So kind of we'll look at a chart in a minute. But first, let me just see if we go with 6240 as an idea, just so we can kind of set it up. If we go to 6240 pin, something like that, or if we want to kind of give it a little room, that's kind of expensive, but for 40 cents, that could be a sport. You can play, you can play it with calls too, but I already have this built in. So, so if I understand what you're saying here, right, and for that we need to pull up TradingView, give up the adjustment, which we already see happening, because here this was the vol surface repricing, not a fake out, nobody bringing it up to bring it down to whatever. This is the initial hedging and maybe the initial algos. I don't even know what the news was. I don't know if the NFP was good, bad, indifferent. What, maybe later during the day or a macro bro will tell me. I don't know where Tim, my macro bro buddy, is, but I usually lean on him. His Twitter is gamma underscore exposure. So NFP. So NFP, more jobs were created than expected. Is that what that means? And so that, in theory, is good. In theory, that means the economy is doing well, right? So we're in the good news is good news camp now. Is that the narrative du jour? Unemployment rate better than expected. Well, that's no good, right? Don't they want unemployment rate to be bad, to be so the Fed's dual mandate, all that stuff? So now the macro bros can talk about how many angels could dance on the head of a pin. Yes, more jobs were created than expected. Chances of rate cuts dropped, right? Yeah, I see that. I see little TNX pop. I think everybody knows, quote unquote, that they ain't cutting until September. So, but we can pretend. Oh, the BBB. I just saw a little headline that um, they're like lining up for a vote, and then there's the whole BBB. The long-term rate's going to spike because it's inflationary. Not like anybody didn't know it, but Somehow, when the news comes out, the market reacts to what it already knows. I'll give you a brief version of my famous story. So, when I was just beginning to kind of get into trading more than investing, was right around the time that Pfizer was releasing Viagra. And we all knew that Viagra was coming out. You know, it had been in the news for a while, and Pfizer went up, went down, and did what it was supposed to do. So on the day Viagra was going to be released in the drugstores, everybody knew it. It was no secret. Pfizer did what it was going to do. And on that day, it popped. And I'm like, WTF. This news isn't news, we all know. But yet somehow the market does that anyway. And so is the market going to do that? Yeah, we all know it's probably going to pass. We all know that the long term it's people are afraid it's inflationary, so it should make the long end rates pop. And then when it happens, when we know it happens, they're going to do it again anyway. Then they're going to reprice it back down to whatever. That seems to be the way Wall Street works. And so that's it. So really, somewhat muted response or response kind of the way it's expected. So we were at 27 ish. We're up. What are we up? 13 points, staying within the expected move, which was what was the expected move? I got it here in my notes. If I could find my own notes. Straddle 35 points. So 65 top, 95 bottom. 37, right? I rounded it off. What's the expected move now that this has come out of it? Let's take a look. Now, I don't know if they repriced it. Probably easier to look at E-mini and see what the expected move is now. 17. So now the expected move is 17. Let's call it 20 for government work or 15 to 20, depending how you want to look at it. So from here, the futures market is pricing in 15 to 20 points. So we'll pretend we're at 35. 15 to 20 points takes us to 50, 55 or 60 max. And 15 to 20 points takes us from, let's just pretend we're at 35. 15 takes us down to that 20-ish pivot, where it takes us down into this zone. And then, of course, we go into the shortened weekend, into the seasonally bullish July. Some of that seemed to have been front loaded, so to speak, this week. Um, Also, we have the famous in my household brother's birthday trade. My birthday is July 5th. I'll be 72. Thank you very much. And my brother's birthday is July 22nd. He'll be 79. Talk about an old OG. And typically, the markets rally between my birthday, July 5th, July 4th, beginning of July, and top out around his birthday, July 22nd, the third week of July, OPEX week. And so typically for years, we've been doing like the, the brothers bullish trade, end of June, get in. They call me McGraw. I get in early anyway. So you could say a June OPEX to a July OPEX trade, or end of June to something like that. So that starts that official trade that is not as widely followed. You would think that they'd be talking about it on CNBC, but for some reason they're not. Okay, what about the BBB? Yeah, so um, I'm not sure what the projections are. From last time I looked, they passed that procedural vote or whatever that nonsense was. They have the votes they need. So it's going to pass. Trump is going to take a victory lap. Maybe there'll be some tariff news. There was that Vietnam news. I don't know about anyone else, but in my longer term portfolio, I got long Vietnam ETF. Supply chain moving to Vietnam longer term is not, Vietnam being one of them, is not rocket science. I've been long India for a while, ETF, a few different ones. I tried to get fancy, but basically the INDA, I guess it is. Um, Not investment advice, because like, duh. I know there's an EEM ex China ETF. I used to be in that. I'm not in that lately. It might be worth looking at. So on weakness, I might look into some of that stuff for, buy and hold kind of stuff. Anyway, let's see what's going on here. I'm looking at the futures chart. So where did we top out? We stalled right around 50. No coincidence. Can't make this shit up. No coincidence. And that's it. Looks like it's going to actually be a somewhat normalish day. Oh, let's just take a quick peek over here. Let me do that. And let's take a quick look at this. Let me see if they have an update yet. No, they don't have an update yet. And like I said, I just like the visualization of this. We know where the levels are. So and the way that thing is, the numerical thing says the strength of it or the volume, but I mean, obviously, got a grain of salt that because that's all the way down there. So, I just look in here. I don't really look at the numbers. Just look at the main features, and we know what to expect at these levels. And somebody asked me about gold, and I'm not really a gold bug, but just for fun, we can take a look at gold. Greg, Master Trader, who was on yesterday, he does all that stuff. And I would suggest that you take a look at, that you watch him. He'll give you the TA on that, but the gamma levels are, looks like we're kind of right at this supportive level here. I'd have to go out look at a longer term chart to see where this pops out. But I mean, just kind of looking simplistically, this looks like a stall pivot area for gold. While we're at it, let's take a peek at Bitcoin. I'm not going to get into all this stuff, but we will take a look at Apple for fun. And there was some Apple risk reversals that came in. Somebody sold what was it, 207 and a half puts and bought 22.5 calls expiring today, I think it was, or for next week. There was a volume in that a day or two ago. So it looks like they got paid or they're going to get paid. Of course, they're going to close it now. And so that's another thing to keep in the back of our minds that I didn't mention, that we have options expiring in all the Mag 7 names and in the queue. And to the extent that they're near their inflection point levels, and where they move, how they get steered around, that's going to spill over into the complex too. So the dispersion trade, where institutions, hedge funds, whatever, with their fancy algos, sell SPX index volatility and buy volatility in the individual names. Volatility meaning puts and calls or straddles or 20 delta wings, whatever they buy. That's churning under the surface here too. Now today's not a huge expiration, so we don't have to get too crazy about it, but just another back of the mind quantuition thing to just kind of keep yourself aware of. So if you see something funky happening and you kind of say, "What? That shouldn't happen," maybe take a peek at Apple or Nvidia or something like that. That's got that's got a weight, or some of the semis, and say, "Oh, that's what's going on. We're near that level here, and that's why things are acting funny." Well, that might be why things are acting funny. Okay, I'm gonna end now. Unless there's any other pinballs, I'm gonna come back and play pinball at 12:30, maybe at noon. If I get bored, I'm gonna do it live, and I'm gonna see if I can get my meme to work. Not my meme, whatever it is, that little thing. So I'll put it on wherever, on Twitter and everywhere, so we can all play pinball together. Let's make it a feature, guys. Let's have everybody who's into this obscure SPX stuff come play pinball together. And we can even have a prize. You'll get like a star emoji. We can even have a poll or something like that. We can have fun with it. It looks like we're trying to, 50, it seems to be where we're heading for now. Okay, thanks for watching. Everybody go watch Master Trader now. 6260. Oh, we got a 6260. Thank you, Victoria. I'm glad you are. I mean, really, I enjoy teaching. I taught undergrad psychology. I taught graduate school psychology. I've always kind of had that in my repertoire of what I do. My teaching style might be a tad unorthodox. Now, let me just, where's my boy, Master Trader? Hold on. Watch Eyebrows Live. And I'll be doing something with them. I'll be doing something with them next week. They're empty live. Thank you. I kind of wear my passion on my sleeve a little bit, which is fine. Yes, I do enjoy it. I love it. I enjoy doing this. So, okay, now I'm really out of here. See you guys later. Bye.